And yes, so today I want to talk about gaining weight, specifically during the holiday season. I know that there's so much talk about this for men and women alike. And I think as we grow up, it's sort of part of the conversation. And so I want to say weight has been on my mind quite a bit this year, and I have a lot more to share on that topic. As some of you might have noticed, I actually lost I don't want to say a significant amount, but it is noticeable because I was just such at a low BMI to start with. So I will share more about that. But for me, at least, it's very important to make sure that everything that I do is a lifestyle. So maintaining a fit lifestyle is really the end goal for me, and I think for most of us, because we can all do and try all sorts of different diets that work maybe short term, but not long term, and then we go back to old habits. So I was always looking for sustainable ways to enjoy and maintain what we have. Now, when we talk about holidays, I actually put together all the tips from my own experience. I did not research any of this, I did not look up anything because I wanted real advice that I can share that I know it works because I've used them. And so, side note, I weigh myself every single day, sometimes twice at night and in the morning. And the reason for that is because I'm very closely managing my habits in what I eat. And it's sort of like I'm a live experiment on what works and what doesn't work, and what types of foods I should be eating and how my body's processing it. So, that being said, noticing what tips work and don't work are very much, I would say, come from my experience, right? And Thanksgiving week, that day I think before, I shared a video with holiday tips. So I do highly recommend you go back to that video if you want to after this live and check out the tips there. I'm also revisiting those because I think they're relevant, not necessarily just if you're intermittent fasting or not. I think these tips apply across the board. Now, comment in the chat. Um, what are your, first of all, where are you coming from? And where are you watching? And what are your challenges, if you have any? Are you monitoring your diet? Are you looking for a specific goal to reach? Um, and so, yes, share because I'd love to see. Now, I'm live in a chat. Last time, I don't know if it was active. Now it is live. So please comment and share with us. Okay, and one of the reasons why I think holidays is very important to monitor our diet, sort of because of the exceptions, right? So the routine schedule that we have Monday to Friday, every single week of the year, we know what we're doing, right? We have the same schedule, same work schedule, same lifestyle, really. And I find that it's much easier to control. Now, when we deviate from that schedule, if it's a holiday, if it's a vacation, if we have people visiting, or if we are visiting somebody, that's when sort of all the disruption happens. And for me, at least, that has been the most challenging. And so right now, I think one of the main reasons why we are having this conversation is because there's this general idea that the holiday season starts mid-November and ends, sometime in January. And there's like this month and a half or 2 months of just feasting, right? When we bake cookies and we make all these delicious foods and we're traveling and we have family over. And that's really where the challenge is. We have this conception that we're going to just be on this sort of roller coaster of gaining, I don't know how many weight, pounds throughout 5 to 6 weeks. And I don't look at it like that at all. In fact, share in the comments. Have you heard about this? Because I'm asking people, very like close friends to me. I know they're always on a diet, right? And then very recently, I saw that they were just like eating things like chocolate and cookies that they don't normally eat. So I'm asking, well, what happened to your diet? And then the response I get is, well, I'll get back to it after the holidays. So I'm thinking, well, we're mid-December and basically you're going to eat for another month to expect them to just like pull the belt and go back. So yeah, I think it's we can like sort of narrow it down to perhaps a couple of days, and that's really what that is. To me, I look at it as a very specific holiday. And so keeping that thought in mind, it is not five to 6 weeks, it's more about a couple of days, really. So let's get into the actual tips that I think have helped me a lot, and I hope they're going to help you as well. So first, that was really it, is that holiday is about days and not an entire season. And so just because the conversation is about a couple of weeks, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in that conversation as well. And think about it like that. I think about it as Thanksgiving is one day, Christmas Eve or Christmas Day is one day, and maybe New Year's Eve is another day. And so that's really about 3 days, not 5 to 6 weeks. So I'm going to break down the tips based on what you can do beforehand, during, and after. Now, beforehand, before you have an event, if it's a holiday or vacation, now very specifically, we're talking about the Christmas break. Beforehand, there are a couple of things that I like to do that are very helpful. First is the gym. I recommend looking up the holiday schedule for the gym. So when I go, I want to say almost on a daily basis, right? On a good day, I go, I do my regular schedule. And the week of the holiday, I always check in and ask them very specifically, what is the schedule for that day? What time are they closed? And now, for example, for Thanksgiving, I asked my gym and they were open. Normally they're open like 4 a.m. to like 10 p.m. And that day they were open from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I made it to a point first thing when I woke up that day to go to the gym. And let me tell you, I thought that nobody's going to be there. And to my surprise, I think half the parking lot was full, and I was so proud. And I honestly wanted to just high five every single person there. Good job, like on Thanksgiving Day, you wake up and you go gym at 6 a.m. So good for you. That was really, really a nice, pleasant surprise. Um, Yes, exactly. Hi Malik. Holiday hours vary, and so don't use that as an excuse. So now that I know, that's like the one thing that really, really does help is just go do it first thing in the morning. It's going to help so much. And at least for me, that really helped just not just physically, but mentally as well. I felt so much better for the day that I'm like, you know what? I got my workout done out of the way. So yeah, that's a win for the day. Um, yes. Um, Second tip that I have before the holiday, again, is discipline, is to have that discipline days in advance. And, we made it into this sort of fun game with our kids that, if you know that there's a big event coming up for the day, for the week, a couple of days before, we sort of go into the schedule of not indulging in desserts. So I know this is very vague. This is a lot to a lot of people, but let's say every single day you have one square of chocolate. I'm just giving an example, right? Because I know right now, literally for Christmas, we have like these little chocolate candies. And so if you have that one every single day, and you know that you're going to have a feast coming up, then the couple of days beforehand, we just don't do it. And we come together as a family and we agree that we're not going to indulge and we're going to be really, really good about our diet a couple of days before so that the day of is sort of balances out. And so that was a little trick. And it's funny because you sort of get into this routine and you teach your kids that way. And so my daughter actually just came to me yesterday and I brought her some chocolate and she actually left it on the table and I was asking her, why are you not eating it? And she says she's saving herself because she has a Christmas party the next day at school. And so that was such a nice moment to see that it worked, right? So we can be more disciplined and practice that sort of balanced approach. So I highly recommend that as well. Um, let's see. Yes, early mornings. I love working out early mornings, Malik, as well. I think it's, if you have the time, it is such a good boost of energy. The next tip that I have is in advance to prepare a menu with healthy options. Now, if you're hosting, um, the whatever feast or meal that is, you have control over the menu. So you can make whatever it is that you want to do. Now, of course, you probably have some traditional meal or like dishes that you make and that people like and favorites. I always like ask every single person invited, like, what would you like to eat? What is the one thing that you would like to see on the menu? So then I sort of created this free menu. I highly recommend you do that. Go to Canva or any online sort of tool, and they already have templates made, and it's so cute. I have like a little menu made for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, and we put in like the appetizers, entree, and dessert, and really we narrow it down to a couple of things that everybody wants. So it's a good way to include everyone. At the same time, I want to say that I deviate from the norm of expectations of for example, this year, right, Thanksgiving is all about the mac and cheese. It's really, really fat and full of carbs. And so I have a lot more variations of vegetables, like fun variations, like, for example, zucchini patties. I love those. And I look for including more diversity of healthy foods that I like. I know everyone else will like. So just because you're expecting to see a lot of bread and a lot of carbs, I'm gonna pick on carbs because that's really my biggest. I would say no, no. Having the diversity of options is really helpful as well. So for you as a participant that you will eat these, not only you're feeding healthier options to your family and to your guests, but it helps you maintain your sort of routine daily schedule. And the last one that I'm going to tip for before the holiday or before the feast would be if you are intermittent fasting to eat, to adjust the window based on your schedule. Again, if you're hosting. So, for example, I eat 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. If I am going to host a feast, it's going to be at lunchtime. And I mean, I've been doing this for a really long time, and my family knows about this, and they've been very supportive. So they automatically, like, if we are invited, they ask us, what time would you prefer? So it's very kind gesture, I think. And that just goes to show that if you stick to, your plan and your routine, others will follow as well. But again, I'm not saying this to have everyone else dance around you. But if possible, and if you're hosting, bring it to a meal during the day, which will make it so much easier. Comment below and share with me where you watching from, and also what what are sort of challenges on this topic, or are you even worried about it at all? Or am I just like overthinking it? Okay, more tips. Now let's go into the actual during what happens during the day of, let's say, right? I have this mindset that I've shifted. It sort of started from buffet. So if you go on a cruise, you're going to have a buffet of a lot of options. If you go to really the feast, have so many options. And my my thought process, my mindset as a lifestyle has shifted to sampling. And it's funny because my current work actually has that. It's like a full buffet for lunch, and you have desserts, and you have a lot of options. You cannot physically eat every single thing there. So you have to pick and choose. And the only way that I could do that is to put a very, very small amount of each if I really want to test every single one. Of course, I don't all of them, but the majority. And this was sort of made me think, right? If you have five desserts in front of you, you're going to first try them all out. And once you do that, you're going to be full, really. And this is where I came up with this concept of you are mainly testing the food and you're sampling it, and you're going to see how uh, how fast you're going to get full. These smaller portions really help so that you enjoy the diversity without overdoing it. So it's very helpful. The second tip that I have for the day of is to remember that you are the boss of your own plate. And I say this because I think sometimes we have our parents or older guests sort of either comment or say something about, well, you have to try my food or you have to try the dish that I brought and you're not eating enough, or you know what I mean, any sort of version of that. And I think this is just a kind reminder that you don't need to worry about it. You just mind your own plate and let everyone else just sort of have their own opinion. You don't even need to respond. So I think owning that and having that attitude is very helpful, and it's sort of empowering because um, I just I just don't mind anymore. And even the choice of how much you put out of each dish, all of it, like no one really should comment on that anymore. And if they are, then just don't worry about it. You know, you do what you do and what you want to do, and don't feel the pressure to meet anyone else's expectations. And honestly, you don't even need to explain yourself. You do not need to bring anyone else into, you know, explain the reasons of why you're eating, how you're eating, how much you're eating. It's just that's your own private, I feel, take in your own diet, and you don't really need to share that or explain yourself for that matter. The next tip that I have, and I know this is very, very boring, but it is to stay hydrated. I have seen the effect of not being hydrated for in quite different, ways. First of all, we know from a diet perspective, if you sometimes you might eat, and I read about this as well. Sometimes we feel like we're hungry just because we are dehydrated. So it's really important to have that replenishment at all times. And it really does help a lot to sort of, I'm not going to say drink a cup of water before you eat, but make sure that you're diluting whatever you eat so that it makes you feel better. And yes, ultimately it does take up some space in your tummy so that you're not going to overeat as easily. And then my next tip during the day, during a specific feast or meal during the holiday, is to place all your food all at once on your plate. And don't go for seconds, if possible. And the reason for that is because, first of all, once you put the sampling we talked about, right? Once you put everything on the plate, you can then assess, is this too much or not? Because a lot of times what I've noticed I do is I put whatever I wanted initially, I eat it, and then I want to either add more or look for other things to add that I haven't tried before. So ultimately, this adds a lot of extra. I think this leads to overeating and being overly full. And for me, at least, that was, if I would have known that from the beginning, I probably would have been more picky about what I put on a plate. So, bottom line is just keep this rule in mind. Put everything you want to eat first time on your plate, and then you also don't need to finish, right? If you overpacked it, at least you tried what you wanted, but don't sit down at a table and then just keep grabbing additional things. If again, you're trying to be mindful about what you're eating. Um, Next step after that, which is really, really important, is to remove the plate from in front of you after you're done eating. Again, I know these sound like really detailed tips, but it does help. I think this was one of the first change that I have done, and that has significantly reduced my portion size, and then ultimately led to weight loss because we don't really. No one really tells us that over time we should reduce our portion sizes as we age. This is just sort of a step that I think we all need to make, men and women, and we fail to do it, and which leads into overeating. So a lot of times you're done eating, right? The plate is in front of you, and you're having this conversation like we're having right now, and then you just sit down and you're staring and you're talking and you're noticing that you're picking at the food. And even though you were full before, but just because it's in front of you. So I highly recommend just stopping, listening to your body, stop when you're full, remove it from in front of you, and then just have a nice conversation without picking at your food afterwards. And yes, again, this is a lifestyle that I've sort of adopted over time. If you practice all of these little tips, I find that you don't have to think about them anymore. It sort of enters into your own routine and habits, and it sort of stays with you. Again, this is a lifestyle, not a one day thing. So if you want to consistently stay fit and not overeat, you really need to introduce habits that will align better with um, either losing weight or maintaining that weight. Now let's talk about afterwards. So what happens after a holiday feast? The number one thing that I recommend is to go for a walk, or obviously you can do exercise right at that point. But when you move, you will feel a little bit better as well, and it's much easier to digest. And nothing major, just a small walk around the house, around the block in your community. It's a great time to bond with your guests or whoever is with you, and we sort of do this every single time we have a holiday feast, and it has helped us. Well, we try to do it on a daily basis regardless, but I think it's particularly applicable after a big meal. And now, the last one that I guess almost last tip for after a big feast is to keep the dinner light, really. Think about what you did before for lunchtime, right? It was like a big meal, and you don't have to go overboard again for dinner time. Um, and if you're intermittent fasting, again, try to maintain your eating window and maybe replenish if you just have like 2 hours left. And then, you will get back into your routine right away. It does take days to recover if you are breaking your fasting window. At least for me, it has. So I try to stick with it as much as possible, because if not, I feel later, I just feel tired and sluggish, and it's just, I feel like it was really not worth it. So I don't know. Are you intermittent fasting? Have you thought about trying? Even if you're watching a replay, please just comment in the chat and let me know what are some of the, I guess, what are some of the diet challenges that you're going through? And I know that we talked about intermittent fasting, and I'm hearing that quite a few people are doing some variation of it. So if this is something that you're interested in, share below as well. What has been your experience with it? And at the end of the day, I think a really big part of um, managing weight after a feast is to give yourself grace and don't feel bad about it if you everything did not go exactly how you thought it would. I know for some of us, they're actively trying to lose weight or to manage it or just be really, really good about it. It's just something important that we do. Sometimes there's this guilt that comes after, and I just want you to know that you don't have to feel like that. I think it's okay to give ourselves that one day of break of we just enjoyed ourselves and then get right back into that routine. Now, if you are interested in intermittent fasting, one of the hardest things that I found that I was really eager to try it, but I didn't really know how to start. And I felt like that was lacking. So I put together a free style guide. Well, style guide, I guess, food guide. I put together a free guide for you on how to kickstart your intermittent fasting with the 16-8 method, and you can download it for free. Go to womenofhighvalue.com/start-if. And now, key takeaways from this video on how to go through the holidays without gaining weight. If you do all of these steps, then I think that your success is guaranteed, basically. I have been doing them, most of them, all the time, so I know it works. If you do some of these steps, it is still better than none. And this is very, very important. Don't do extremes. If you fail to do one, if you fail to go to gym that day, or if you fail to watch your portion control, or if you fail to stick with your schedule, it's okay as long as try your best to do the other tips, right? Um, and I'm going to end this with the two biggest, most important factors when in tipping the scale about gaining weight. That I found. And the first one is portion size. So if you lower the portion size from the normal, I don't want to say from yesterday, right? But from the portion size of what you were used to when you're perhaps stagnant or gaining weight, if you reduce the portion size, that will have the biggest impact on weight fluctuation. And to this, I'm just going to add again, I think this is super important because as we age, in my 30s, mid 30s, I noticed this that no one really tells you to lower the portion size. So in my mind, I'm still thinking like in my 20s, how much I was able to eat then. I really can't do that anymore, not without gaining weight. So our metabolisms change, it slows down, and no one really tells us to adjust, basically. So portion control is the number one factor that I think influences weight that I've noticed. And the second one is the quality of food. You have to sort of filter out and go for nutrient dense food instead of fillers. So very, very important. And if you stack up your plate on with, most nutritious food, finish that first, and then, if you can, if there's room, go for fillers, but really focus on those two, portion control and the quality of food. Now, if this video has been helpful, please like and share. Comment also again in the replay what works for you, what are some of your challenges, and I'm going to see you very soon in my next video. Take care.